Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm G4 here. Today we are finally back for Eugene Dbt02. This is a deck I've been really excited to get into because I really, like I said, I enjoy Eugene as a deck a lot. And Eugene in set 2 didn't get a lot, but it got some relatively good cards as well as plenty of great generic options. So I'm just really glad I can come back and talk about it. I will try my best to not spend too much time to really elaborate. I've done Eugene before in the past. You can check my last updated deck profile in the description below. I'll leave the link to it. So generally speaking, I won't go in depth too much in terms of cards we've already seen and returning, but I like to give a shout out more to other options that this deck can play. So you will see more cards being shown than the actual list, but of course you can obviously tell which are the cards I'm playing because they are sleeved. So I just want to get it out of the way. Let's get started. Yeah, the right line is already here. I'm an idiot. Grade 0 is our starter Bart, really good starter. Grade 1 is Nigel. Nigel has 2 skills. When rolled upon by Randor, which is the grade 2, you soul charge 1. Really generic since we need soul. Second skill is when your opponent's rear guard's retired, counter blast 1, kill itself, kill another one of your opponent's rear guards. So it's a 1-for-1 trade at the cost of CB1. You may say, why are we just trading our rear guards? Like, what the heck's the point of that? But as you can see, Eugene really requires your rear guards to enter these little gunfights with each other to just snipe. So you could use his final skill for the big payoff. Randor's skill is when Eugene rides on top of Randor, put 1 card from your drop zone into your soul, you draw a card. So it's like soul charging, but using a card you've already used before. It helps you not really thin the deck, so hooray, and it's a draw, so you get a draw, why not? Second skill is the really not so good skill. It's on Vanguard and Rearguard. When this unit attacks, counter blast 1. If your opponent has 2 or less Rearguards, soul charge 1, it gains 5k. Really, you shouldn't need to trade in 1 CB for 1 SB, yet alone the 5k. If you really need 15k beaters, we have plenty of them later in the video. Really, the fact that you have to pay for this skill is just really what sets Randor way back. Then we have Eugene. Eugene's skill has 2 skills. You rest 2 of your rear guards once per turn. Choose 1 of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. This unit gains 10k power. So straight away, it doesn't require CB or SB for the first skill. You just need to set 2 of your own rear guards to rest, and you sack 1 of your opponent's rear guards and gains 10k. 10k is really great for magic numbers since you know how shields work in this game. Yeah, and the second one is obviously great without you inherently going to a net minus. You just prevent your units from participating in battle. Or do you? Let's see the support later on. Second skill is Soul Blast 5. If you retire the rearguard this turn, look at the top cards of your deck equal to the number of your empty rearguard circles of your opponent. Superior call any number, soul charge the rest. This is probably the skill that is the great controversy of Eugene. And on one hand, people are like, superior call, quick trigger, oh look, my PG, oh, Junk Veda, haha. Yeah, but let's be extremely frank, this rarely happens because, I mean, if you get all 5 triggers or something, or even less than that, since sometimes you don't always have your opponent at an empty field, you probably just have bad luck, bro. You shouldn't be playing this deck. Secondly, the quality of our rear guards have really gone up, so you do have good options. Even if you only get to call 1 to 2 rear guards at the cost of Soul Blast 5, I'm personally vouching that that's actually pretty good because you're using Soul, and Soul's a resource that's barely touched in this deck besides Eugene, plus like what, 1 to 2 other cards. So really, it's not that hard to use the Soul. I mean, you might as well just trade it in since you're building up with it. Last but not least, remember, you soul charge the rest. So you are not doomed to just call a bad field. You can just put it into your soul and hope to use the skill again next turn if you really need to. But Eugene's Soul Blast 5 skill is not something you should be spamming. If you have a good board already, why fix what's not broken? That's really the thing that Eugene is here to offer. It's an emergency backup. It's not something you have to use every turn. And I think that's something only relatively more comfortable players of Eugene, or at least better players of Eugene, will be able to see right away, that you don't need to replace every board every turn, because it's not like your board disappears like Night Rose or something, so really it's not that big of a deal. We start off with our grade 3s. We play 4 copies of Eugene, 1 for the right deck. We play 4 copies of Tribash. And for the alternate option that we have in terms of our grade 3 department, I would like to nominate Volcanic Gun Dragon. So let's get started. Eugene's pretty straightforward. You want more grade 3s in the deck. Then we move on to Tribash. Tribash is just really great of a card. His skill is, when your Vanguard attacks, move this unit into the soul. Your Vanguard gains +1 crit. The requirement is just that you need 2 of your opponent's rear guards. You just need your opponent to have 2 or less rear guards, which is really easy because you're sniping them down like flies. So it's a control-based Naru/Kagero style deck. This is just a really easy option. It's just that good, you know. Even if you rest this unit with Tribash with Eugene's skill, you can just slide into the soul and it just won't matter. Whether it's standing or resting, you still get its skill, which is pretty good. And you get an extra soul, which is also pretty good. So Tribash is something you definitely should be playing in a Eugene deck unless he gets hard power crap by set 5 or set 6. So yeah. Our alternate option for Eugene is Volcanic Gun Dragon. Volcanic Gun Dragon is a very simple skill, which is that when he attacks, if your opponent has no front row units, this unit gains 5,000 power. 18k beater, pretty impressive. There's a reason why Zorga decks like their hydraulic rams, and this is our hydraulic ram. But does this make the cut for Eugene? I say this one is more of a player preference on whether you want to or not. Price-wise, it's no problem, it's a common, so you definitely will see more budgeted Eugene lists playing this, and there is no fault in that. It's a good card. My only problem is that this card, which is main selling point being a magic number beater, competes with 3/4 of this deck because we have a lot of magic numbers already, especially in our grade 2 department, which specializes on attacking with magic numbers. So if you ask me, I don't really think there's much space for this guy, but if you really like him and you like his art like me, he's definitely an option. Moving on to the grade 2s, we play 4 copies of the returning Hungersaurus. We play 1 copy of Randor for the right deck. We play 4 copies of Gibrasaurus, and we also have alternate options as well in the forms of more Randor as well as Onishifuki. So let's break them down, shall we? Right on the bat, like I already mentioned for Randor, pretty ass card, so you really just don't want to be playing more copies of it in your deck. It's just not worth it. If you see a Eugene player play Randor in the main deck, you can pretty much just write them off as someone who doesn't know how to play the deck, or he's just objectively bad, because the card is objectively bad. Then we move on to Onishifuki as well as Hungersaurus. It's something we have to talk in tandem. Now, for those of you who actually watched that first deck profile I made, these 2 are cards I did play in set 1. So why is one still in the deck and one isn't when they literally have almost the same skill? Well, my friend, the devil is in the details, which is why they are the way they are now. Hungersaurus' skill is this unit gains 5,000 power and must attack a front row rear guard if one is present. Onishifuki's skill is when this attacks, if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, this unit gains 5k power. There is an active difference between the both of them. Onishifuki requires your opponent to have 2 or less rear guards when he attacks. Then it gains the 5,000 power. Hungersaurus is built in at a 15k ready to strike, but it must only attack a front row rear guard if one is present. The requirements of Hungersaurus are notably easier than that of Onishifuki, so that's already 1 down. Secondly, Hungersaurus tackles something the deck really doesn't tackle for now, which is resist. When we have people like Bastion or Trickstar walking around, you want to be able to just kill them outright. And you can't with your retire skills because they just can't be retired. If you had an Onishifuki versus a Hungersaurus in the front row, the Hungersaurus will be able to swing into them at 15k power, but your Onishifuki will not if your opponent has 3 or more rear guards, whereas Hungersaurus will always be able to strike. So that is the main reason why Hungersaurus is still played in this deck, but Onishifuki is not. Disclaimer, Onishifuki is still a great card, so if you still want to play him in your Eugene deck, there is no problem whatsoever, and I actually highly recommend it. It's just for my list, there is no space for him anymore, but he's really good still. There is a chance that he may end up coming back if Hungersaurus gets kicked out because you get better ways to tackle resist. Who knows? But definitely keep both of these 2 in mind together because they're kind of in the same department, but they just have different conditions to do it. So But like I said, I still love Onishifuki, so please play him in your deck if you like him too. Then we have the new king, Gibrasaurus. Gibrasaurus is the #1 card to pick up for Eugene in Dbt02. It is just that good. It has 2 skills. The first skill is, if your Vanguard is this copy of Eugene, which means you can't play Gibrasaurus if Eugene gets a new form and it eventually gets power cracked. Alright, you Soul Blast 1 card from your soul, you rest this unit, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. This is the first time in the main deck that Soul is now used as a resource for something that's not Eugene, and even better, for retiring. So generally this is just really good, because like I said, you barely use Soul to begin with, so now you can just afford to use it. The second part is really good as well. At the start of your battle phase, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, you stand this unit and it gains 5,000 power. So if you rested this guy with the skill of itself, because it's Soul Blast 1, rest 1, or if you use Eugene's skill to rest it, it now just stands. You have completely netted off the whole cost. The entire problem of Eugene making units not being able to participate in battle, swipe that, it's gone. And it's a 15k hitter. So it instantly shares very same similarities with Onishifuki as well as Hungersaurus, but without just being 15k. Gibrasaurus just does way more than that. So definitely, if you are planning to play Eugene, please pick this up. It is just a rare. There is a holo, so if you like him, pick that up as well. It's just really good. If there's only 1 card you can buy from this set, I want this to be the one. Moving on to our great ones at long last, we have 4 copies of Dragon Monk Gojo. We play 4 copies of Drag Ritter or Dragon Knight Idris. We play 4 copies of Nigel. We have 4 PGs in the form of Twin Buckler. And then for our alternate deck options, we have Kizan Rage, this guy, Veloster Hazard, as well as, where is he? Ah yes, Tensha Steed. So let's break down what this deck has and already doesn't have. First of all, stronger PG. No reason not to play it. If you can't afford it, it's fine. No one is shooting you. Nigel, as I've already elaborated, is such a great card, right? It's just play it. It's good. I guarantee you. Maybe Nigel will get power crap soon, but I think for the current point in time, Nigel is good enough. Then we also play 4 copies of Drag Ritter Idris. Idris, spoiler, it's a 5k. You can see it here. It's a 5k. I've warned you. It's a double rare from Dbt02. He has 2 skills, or mainly 1 skill that splits into 2. If your opponent's rear guard is retired this turn, counter blast 1, apply one of these 2 effects. Effect 1, this unit gains 10,000 power. Effect 2, you put this unit into your soul, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards, and retire them. So, instantly your counter blast now just takes on new meaning. You can either trade it in for magic numbers, or you can just continue to do more of what Nigel used to do, which is just sacking. But Nigel retires itself, but Idris moves to the soul. So you still don't exactly lose the unit. You straight up just put in the soul and fund more souls. So that is pretty good. The magic numbers is always appreciated if you just have spare counter blast. You can just trade it in and just pump power. 15k, 25k, 35k, 45k meter. It's still threatening, but obviously your CB could be used for better usage if you have better usages for it. Idris is a really bad card, but what Idris has that nobody else has is raw flexibility, which is why Idris is in his deck. Trust me when I say if there's a better option in set 3, he's definitely getting the boot. But as of this point in time, he's flexible enough to warrant being played in Eugene. Let's move on to our other options first before we go back to talk about Gojo. Veloster Hazard is a 10k booster for absolutely free. But that's all it does, it's just a booster. If you rest this card by the effect of Eugene, it's no longer to participate in battle, it loses its value. Pretty sad. But it's a really good early game booster and aggression is good. So this helps, but it's not really much space to play. If you do have a bit of a budget for Eugene and you can't afford that much, pick up Veloster Hazard. It's a great card, but if you can afford better options, just go for that. But Veloster Hazard's art's pretty nice. Then we move on to 4 copies of Kizan Rage. Kizan Rage has the skill Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1 once per turn, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. It's similar to Gibasaurus because it's an X skill, you know, so you can just, any once per turn, just CB1, SB1, sack. Really good. If you rest it, it's fine as well because you still get to use the X skill. Problems are, this unit does not gain power at all, so it's literally just an 8k vanilla that sacks. Second, it's just CB1, SB1. It's straight up so expensive for just that sack. We have so much better ways for sacking. You don't have to resort to Kizan Rage. People do play Kizan Rage in Eugene, and it's understandable why, because it's just an X skill that's always available once per turn to sack. But if you have other sacking options, Kizan Rage becomes less and less viable in my opinion, so just keep that in mind. More to come, we have Gojo. Gojo's skill is, if this boosts a successful attack that hits your opponent's Vanguard, you counter charge 1 and kill this unit. Very straightforward, it's just CC. Dragon Empire's generic CC, this is used for both Overlord and Eugene. Yes, I intend to cover Overlord if everything goes well on this channel. So it's just CC, really there's nothing else to it, that's about it. Because this deck does use a lot of CB, that's why he's here. We play 4 Tensha Steed. Tensha Steed used to be played in this deck at a 4, and it's still a very good card. It's a great generic for Dragon Empire. But why is it not played in this deck? Because first of all, we only play, in our entire right deck, we only play duplicates of Nigel and Eugene. And you never search for Nigel, because that is just really bad usage of your CB, and it just shows that you don't know how you should be using it. Or also, you can't really search for Nigel, because why would you use CB on your first turn? So that's something to think about. Secondly, that means it's only used as a Eugene searcher. It needs the hit in order to actually get this search. The Persona Right search is great because the more copies you Persona Right, the more value you get. There is never no value from a Persona Right. But you have to think about it in this perspective. If 3 to 4 copies of Eugene does come out, this card turns into an absolute vanilla. It just loses all its point whatsoever. Secondly, this unit does nothing really offensively besides the pressure. It doesn't help you sack at all. It's just an 8k. If it boosts, the opponent can just guard it. The end. Tensha Steed is a vanilla. The pressure is really all it's there for, which is why some people actually opt to cut Tensha Steed from their decks. If you ask me, I don't really think there's a need to cut it. If you do like Tensha Steed, do play it in your Dragon Empire decks. But for me right now, I feel there's not much space, which is why he's not being played. But if you have it, if you can afford it, if you like it, go for it. And last but finally, definitely not least, we have our trigger lineup. Triggers, really easy. 1 OT, 3 draw, 4 heals, and 8 crits, as well as our starter. So to just really break it down, starter, because it's a starter, 8 crits, because you just want that kill pressure. We play 4 heals, because, you know, you want to heal. We play 3 draws. Aggressive decks play 3 fronts in this slot, but I play draws because Eugene is a very piece-reliant deck at the end of the day. Sure, that front can help you, but really, how big of an extent is the extra shield rather than a +1 in card economy? So, to me, I still rather the draw. But if you want to play the fronts, there's really no harm. It's just, I prefer the draw. Where are my front triggers that I can't show you today? I left them at home. And then we have DOT, which is Drunk Veda, but if you can't afford Drunk Veda, just play the CEOT. Drunk Veda is just really good though. You stand your Vanguard and it attacks again. It's a direct attack again, it's more trigger checks, it's just really good. If you can't afford it, it's fine. And that about wraps it for our Eugene deck profile for 02. I took the effort to really spend more time into talking about the alternate options because I could. I'm very comfortable playing Eugene as well as talking and explaining about Eugene and playing it competitively even. I just quite like it. So I could have the extra liberty to spend time talking about options we can and cannot play rather than other decks where I don't really have that much of an option. I just really mention the notables at most, but I can really expand more in this deck profile and I hope you enjoyed it. I need to go drink some water. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, like and sub, I appreciate it. We intend to cover more Dbt02 deck profiles like Bruce and Overlord if we can. or maybe even Bastion. So let me know. Goodbye.